Welcome to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, where we pride ourselves on having one of the best public education systems in the country. This is a place where we hold a truth to be self-evident, that all children, regardless of ethnicity or religion, income or zip code, are endowed by this Commonwealth with a certain unalienable right to an equitable foundational education. But what if I told you this foundation of equity has become meaningless? What if I told you that while all communities here in the Commonwealth are held to the same high academic performance standards, not all communities are able to provide equal tools to achieve these goals? What if I told you there is a critical imbalance in our ability to provide teachers and students with the supports they need, and that this inequity is oftentimes based on zip code alone? What if I introduced you to two educators, two sisters, both teaching children in public schools, but in different zip codes, and because of these zip codes, work in vastly different realities? Let me tell you a tale of two sisters. Laura Phillips is an art teacher at Marshall Simons Middle School in Burlington.
Right, so he's going to be around this. That shirt will be shaved.
I've been super lucky. I have the ability to do whatever I want in my classes, and oftentimes if I decide that I want to do a special project, I reach out to either the principal or the superintendent, and for some way we make it and it gets funded. Everything I need is provided by my school system. The district basically provides everything from pencils to notebooks to art materials. It affects my teaching because I'm not worried about the kids not having anything. I'm not worried about the kids that can't afford it. The kids that can afford it, they might bring in extra things, but everyone is equal. This is a pretty well-equipped classroom, and I teach kids things that they would never learn in a middle school. Like, we run a photo club after school. It's free, and normally we have about 24 kids. I have 35 millimeter cameras for middle school students. We use the computers. We use acrylic paint, which I listen to other middle school teachers, and none of these supplies are even available to them.
Laura's boss is Dr. Eric Conti, superintendent of the Burlington Public Schools. Burlington has a $60 million budget, 3,500 students, and spends $17,200 per year per student.
I think our teachers are an aspect of Burlington that I'm really proud of, and our building leaders, our principals. And having consistency in those positions allows for enhanced collaboration. And teaching is a very complex job, and I think you get better over time. There's a cost to turnover, and I've been happy that we've been able to maintain our staffing levels and keep people in the job, get them trained up, so we can provide the highest performing professionals to work with our children across the community. Burlington was also, 9 years ago, one of the first high schools to offer a one-to-one learning environment. That's where every child has a web-enabled device at our high school, and since that time we've expanded from grades 1 through 12. So in Burlington, every student from grades 1 to 12 has a web-enabled device, and that allows us to access countless numbers of curricular opportunities and tools for kids to enhance their learning. We've added social workers, we've added school psychologists to each building, we've added guidance counselors, so we're really trying to make sure that those relationships that students have with adults, charismatic adults is what the research says, that there are opportunities for kids to form those relationships, because that's when real learning takes place, and that's where that sustained learning can happen over time. We have a very active business community that's very supportive of the schools. Our Chamber of Commerce couldn't be more supportive. We have an education foundation that provides fundraisers every year and provides opportunity for innovation.
But this is a story of two teachers, not one. Remember, not all teachers are as fortunate as Laura. One such teacher is Laura's sister, Karen Kavanaugh.
One of the mottos that we've had in Brockton the last couple of years is that we do more with less. And every year we're asked to do more with less. For classroom supplies every year, I buy my class all my own notebooks because I know some of my students can't afford them. So I purchase them with my own money. I purchase 2 pocket portfolios. I buy pencils, I buy a pencil sharpener, and they're not reimbursed. Because of budget cuts, I've changed grades so many times. my kids are at a disadvantage because we don't have all those resources. They've cut all our extracurricular programs except for sports. So the kids don't have a science club or a photography club or homework help or anything like that. We don't attract the best teachers because they know they may lose their job. We have cuts every year. So forming a collegial base in a strong cooperative learning environment, the person that you worked with last year might not be the person you work with next year. So from my standpoint as a teacher, I am not looking for more than what anybody else gets. I'm looking for the same. So if I'm held to the same standards, I should have the same materials, supplies, support.
Karen's boss is Dr. Kathleen Smith, Superintendent of the Brockton Public Schools. Brockton has a $260 million budget and nearly 18,000 students. Brockton spends just $14,000 per year per student.
The beginning of my school year was to really looking across the auditorium, and what we did was we put out 80 yellow ribbons in that auditorium. And that 80 yellow ribbons signified the 80 teachers that had been there the previous year that were no longer in the district. 80 teachers were laid off because of budget cuts. Little by little, we have watched a reduction in Chapter 70 funding throughout the state. Funding that was supposed to provide an adequate education for every child, no matter the zip code, has now been reduced when we're spending, and this is not just Brockton, additional funding for special education mandates, which our children need. Additional funding for health insurance that we have to provide to all our employees. Inflation rates that are out of control. Spending for professional development with the mandates that our teachers face and making sure that we are leading the nation, we are number one, we provide a rigorous curriculum. All of that, while funds in Brockton over the past 5 years, we have been cutting. You look at some of your more affluent districts, they spend close to $300 per student, which is appropriate, and it is needed in this day and time. Last year, when we reduced 80 teachers, we spent $1.24 per student on a supply budget for materials, curriculum, and supplies. Never mind talking about technology that was reduced from $5 million down to $1 million. For some districts, they are able to go above and beyond once they meet foundation. If they want to bring one-to-one devices throughout the district, they're able to put an extra million, an extra 2 million, etc. into their budget to be able to support those initiatives with the new high-stakes testing coming in. When you're talking about your urban districts and your gateway cities, we do not have that opportunity. Our makeup now, 80% minority students in our district, a poverty rate that at one point was registering 81% of our students were receiving free and reduced lunch. During that same time period, we have reduced our teaching staff by 200 teachers. At one point, we had 18 in a first grade classroom. We were able to provide a paraprofessional to work with our teacher to provide those extra supports, interventionists to make sure our children are reading by grade 3. What we now have is a district trying to keep their head above water.
The disparities between these two school systems are not an anomaly. The lack of equitable support for students stems from an outdated educational funding formula that was adopted in 1993. Laura and Karen recently sat down to discuss the differences in their schools.
In Burlington, they want you to be innovative. They want, they're trying to prepare students for the 21st century, what's out there, technology, coding, all that stuff.
Science,
and
you're talking
science,
about.
we do. We have robotics, and like I was asking you if you have any of that in your schools.
And I think that, you're only in middle school. We have a lot of those programs, but they're not until high school. But you even do photography club. We don't even have a camera. I have to borrow them from you when I want to photograph anything.
Yeah. And I think a lot of these things need to start earlier because, kids are making decision in middle school now, do I go to a tech school or do I go to the public school or private school? And it's important that the school provide everybody with equal opportunities.
It's not so much the class size, because your class sizes are getting bigger now too, but it's the support and the assistance you guys get within your classroom.
Right, so just recently we just got every single team of 4 teachers. Now, core teachers have a special ed teacher that travels with their kids because our numbers are growing. Our 504s and our ELL numbers and people on IEP students. It's like, we're starting to feel that as well, and we need the support, and I feel like they're growing it. We are also dealing with other issues now,
Right, social emotional things that you guys at least address. I mean, we try, but we don't have like psychiatrists and psychologists in every school like you do.
Right, we just got that, which is awesome,
Right.
because we do have a lot of those.
But a sped
students.
teacher in every grade, every
Yeah.
team. 4 teachers get their own sped teacher, their own reading helper, their own
Assistant.
math teacher, extra people. So we have 4 people, and for every 4 you have 7.
Yeah,
And we don't even have materials to do great things.
right. So it's unfair. It's like, I feel like a lot of the time is spent with teachers that are struggling, schools are struggling. They're like doing fundraisers and things like that, but it shouldn't be used for things that should be provided for the school. I mean, that should be totally like for some crazy project, like extra. But anything that
Part of the curriculum.
every student should have the same. They should all be able to have the specials that make a well-rounded, student.
Same experiences. If it's a public school and it's the same state, we all should have the same.
Okay.
It's not fair to the kids in my school. We have great kids here, and they're not given all the opportunities that would present themselves for them to make a good choice of what to do for a career, to prepare for a job, just to be prepared even for college.
Yeah. Every day coming to school knowing that this is a great place to be and that...
You're not worrying your job's going to be eliminated at the end of the year.
Right. For the first time, I have a new colleague, and it's because someone retired. So we, get new blood in when people leave the school, for good reasons, not because they're cut, because there's no funding.
And I've had complete new teams for the last 4 years.
Yeah, that's horrible.
Think about that for a moment. You wouldn't use Windows 3.1 on an Apple IIe computer today. Yet Massachusetts continues to fund public education on a formula created in 1993. 1993 did not take into account technology in classrooms, let alone information technology departments in schools. 1993 did not take into account school safety or social and emotional wellness or the expansion of special education services. And let's not forget today's health insurance costs that exceed that 1993 formula's projections by 140%. It is something that Dr. Conti and Dr. Smith and many other superintendents across the Commonwealth discuss on a regular basis.
Eric, going back 4 years ago, I had come on as superintendent just before that, and I was so excited when I saw the Foundation Budget Review Commission really started to look at those areas that were impacting Brockton. Low income, bilingual education, special education, and certainly the healthcare costs for all of us in the Commonwealth. And it has just been amazing in a very negative way that when I look at last year, it got to the point that we were dealing with a $16 million deficit. And I can't imagine on a $220 million budget, we looked at everything we could to try to stay away from the classroom. We tried to look at, are there additional programs? Is that really a curriculum we have to purchase right now? Can we cut technology? And what it came down to in the end was last year we started with 80 less teachers than we had the year before. Instructional materials were cut from probably about $80 we gave every principal per student in their school down to $1.24 over 3 or 4 short years. And I'm really getting disappointed, I'm frustrated when I think about the things that really do need to happen with that foundation budget to support districts like Brockton. How are you dealing with it?
Well, differently, because the foundation has really become meaningless over 25 years. So I think for certain communities that have the means, the foundation's ignored, essentially, and has said we are going to continue to promote programming and establish our own equity within our community. But that doesn't, from a state perspective, that's just, I think, increase the inequity across all school districts. And the teaching and learning that I see here at Davis is phenomenal. And so I don't like when people make this a conversation about teaching and learning, because I think there's exceptional teaching and learning in all districts, and I think we have a lot to learn from each other. Every child is important in the Commonwealth, and it should be all of our missions to make sure that they all have that same chance of success, because providing them that gateway to be successful citizens and productive citizens helps us in the long run. And I think it's going to be more expensive to not deal with these problems earlier, these challenges early, and to get all of our children engaged, moving forward. Someone said to me once, we're not going to discover gas and oil in Massachusetts. Our economy is a brain-driven economy, and there's not enough suburban kids to fill the jobs that are open now. So even if you don't have a moral, ethical fiber in your body, which I think drives all of us, but I'm saying if you don't have that, there's a mathematical morality that we have to fill these positions. And these are the children in schools like Davis that are going to do it.
And while some communities, like Burlington, have been fortunate enough to supplement their budgets with local funding, many, like Brockton, have not. This has created significant inequity in both the education and opportunity for all students. It is something that Dr. Conti and the entire membership of the Massachusetts Association of School Superintendents strongly believes needs to be fixed now.
Massachusetts is in the place that it's in nationally because of the work that was done 25 years ago, and that brought together lawmakers, educators, the business community to make significant changes in the school funding formula, standards, assessment, and governance. Public schools were really reshaped, and we're reaping the benefits of that. We have to have another effort like that for the next 25 years. Reshaping the funding formula for schools is the foundation of that work. If anything, what we've learned over the last 25 years is investing in children in the Commonwealth pays off every time. Please, let's make sure that we provide all students across the Commonwealth, all communities across the Commonwealth, a realistic foundation for them to provide a high-quality education that continues to keep Massachusetts families and children and our economy performing at the level that it's been performing.